On this great Pentecost feast, we offer the reflection from St. Anne's Chapel here on Bishop William Joensen of the Des Moines Diocese, celebrating with you, but also pondering all that's unfolding in our society, our communities these days, and in our country as well. Several years ago, I was traveling with a priest friend from Flagstaff, Arizona, down to Scottsdale on I-17, and then we were diverted off to the side rather than just parking there on a parking lot. The law enforcement directed us over because there were wildfires that had shut off the interstate, and so we kind of deviated on another road. And Father Scott, my friend, was following his GPS, says, well, let's try this other little narrow back road that we might get on. And so then all of a sudden, a huge thunderstorm came over, and we were a little concerned about flash floods and everything. So we were making our way very cautiously, snaking through in a blinding rainstorm, and then all of a sudden, we came upon an interstate exit out in the middle of nowhere that there was nobody to be seen. So we got on the interstate, proceeded a few miles, and found ourselves passing exactly through where the wildfires were, with fire trucks lining the sides, state patrol, and everyone else. And they were kind of looking at us. What are these guys doing here? They're not supposed to be here. And so I kind of made that tentative wave, and we just kept going. No one was going to stop us until we emerged past the fires, seeing on the other side the traffic going the reverse way, lined up for 10 miles or more as they waited for the protective people to do their job. We must pass through fire and water. We must take the narrow way, the way that so often goes against the flow that many want to proceed. This is not to reject others, but for we all want to be safe and continue on the way who is Jesus, for He alone, we know, leads us to life. We pass through fire and water in the moment of our baptism. That was our own personal Pentecost, when the Spirit breathed into us the love who is God. The Spirit wills to be in us and with us and through us forever. Yet we can't hold our breath, either by trying to show how strong we are or because fear knocks the wind out of us. Some sort of locked-in syndrome then that can too easily set us against each other instead of allowing us to overcome what divides us. God's Spirit wants to bestow blessings on each of us, a benefit that we can all share in. Blessings that are never tapped out, for God is infinite Spirit. The COVID-19 contagion has most of us uneasy, maybe even perpetually on edge, protecting ourselves against infection, which can easily turn into protecting ourselves against each other. We're tempted to irritation or indifference, despondency or annoyance, or anger at those things that are presently beyond our control. And then the heat is turned up in the simmering state of affairs when we witness those who are trained to protect the public peace, using their power to deny or worse, destroy life rather than guard it. We must let the justice system do its job. But to any common sense observer of the video and accounts of what happened to Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, Breonna Taylor in Louisville, and this past week, searingly, shockingly, to George Floyd in that asphyxiation that took place in South Minneapolis. Family and friends grieved their passing. But all of humanity, all of us who citizens, feel violated and wounded and incensed by what we have seen and heard. Or more accurately, what was not heard. I can't breathe. What sort of person does not identify with that panic, the helplessness of such a cry? It doesn't matter what nationality or what skin color, whether our ancestors were slave or free persons. Each of us knows what it is to be totally dependent on someone else to hear us when we cry out. To make the first response one that recognizes life, human life, life gifted by the author of life. Make that first response be one of listening. Listening is that most basic gesture of respect. It's the prelude to building up one another in love. So that the words that we then speak, words of praise, words of encouragement, Words that maybe sometimes are protest and anger will ultimately not be our words alone, but it will be the Spirit that is speaking through us. Jean Vanier, who passed away last year, whose own story speaks to our common identity as persons familiar with sin, yet capable of building up beautiful community, reminds us that that title often applied to the Holy Spirit, Paraclete, is rich with meaning. Paraclete, advocate, comforter, helper. But at its root, Paraclete means the one who answers the call. The one who answers the call. When Jesus himself suffocated on the cross, but then restored to the full life by the breath of the Spirit, in turn breathes on his disciples in the locked room, "Peace be with you. Receive the Spirit." He transforms us by gift into being gift for one another. Our capacity to be those who answer the call of others. Jesus visits his Spirit on us so that we might answer the call to help everyone believe that they are a gift to us. Racism, sexism, or any other ism denies and rejects this gift status of others, fixing itself instead on difference to divide and control others, to oppress, as we put our knees into their necks until they quit complaining or crying out for justice. Quit in that way, begging for a chance to use their gifts for the sake of the body, in which the diversity of parts is intended to be for the benefit of all. The condition for hearing the voice and message of the Spirit is our desire to be open to God. We can't control or script what we will hear when we are open to God, what He will say to us. But in peace and trust, we can communicate whatever you want, Lord. This we do know. When we place ourselves at God's disposal, we are accepted by God. And this becomes that launch pad then, where in newfound freedom, we can accept each other unconditionally. When we continue to pray and breathe in the Holy Spirit, we can venture out of our isolated safe zones, and we can love each other and give our lives to them. We can be like Mary, that hot spot of the Holy Spirit. Mary, the hot spot of the Holy Spirit. She doesn't mind that today the Feast of the Visitation takes a backseat to the solemn feast of Pentecost. She would have been justified in begetting and becoming pregnant by the Holy Spirit just to simply sit back, but instead she hastens to help Elizabeth, her cousin. We are endowed with the Spirit to reveal to each other that she or he is precious to God, even if that beauty is sometimes hidden beyond layers of fear or chaos or sin, all those things that rob us of peace. We can help release one another from those attitudes of hatred and violence. We can remove barriers in our community, barriers, yes, in our churches, by the power of the Holy Spirit passing and pouring out through us. And when we do so, suddenly that narrow way, the way that seemed to be going the opposite direction from everyone else, is widened. For accepting one another, we pass arm in arm through the fire and water together, listening to one another, speaking words that bear peace, not wounds, all the while breathing, drinking in the beauty of the Holy Spirit, the beauty of being human. Thank you for listening. Let's continue to pray for each other.